Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. I am Amy, along here with my sister Molly. We help high-achieving women increase their income, but most importantly, their impact. We are neighbors, sisters, and business partners. We have built 8-figure businesses together, traveled the world together, raised our children together, mentored thousands of men and women together, and it's all because we have a penthouse mindset. We aim for the top, and we show others how to empower themselves to peel back the layers and truly step into their greatness and calling. Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. I'm Amy Mosser, my sister Molly Croker, where we help high-achieving women increase their income, but most importantly, their impact. So Molly, take it away. We have the most incredible guest here today.
Hi, everyone. We're so excited. Kristin Rowell has joined us, and she is a former trial attorney turned nutritional therapist, but a lot more than just that. Like, first of all, I have a million questions, but Kristin, I want you to just share with us a little bit about what led you to this new career for you, this new love and passion. I know it's been in you, but for those who don't know you, maybe share a little bit about your background.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you both so much for having me. I like to summarize my transition by just saying this phrase, which is meditation made me do it. So the short version is I have been on a journey, like many people on the planet right now, of slowly awakening spiritually over time. And so if I look back on my life and realize when this started to happen, it was way before I realized it was happening. I believe that my awakening started around 2010 when I had done an intervention on my then current husband, for him to go to treatment at Hazelden for 2 weeks. And then I started as a commitment in my marriage to go to the Al-Anon program, which is a program for friends and family of addicts, alcoholics. Okay. So we would recite the steps in the same way that people in AA do. And we would get to the last step and it would say, step 12, had a spiritual awakening. And it was all these steps. And I was like, spiritual awakening? What's that? I mean, I had no clue. I would just say it, say it, say it. So fast forward, I get divorced 2 years later. I fall and break my leg in 10 places a year and a half after that. And that really catalyzed this interest I had in nutrition. I realize, of course, now everything, how all of this was for me, which I'm sure you guys have your own stories about that as well. And so as that nutrition interest started to grow over the next several years, I just started really attending health conferences on the weekends, doing things that were fueling this passion that was outside of my very busy law practice, which I loved. I mean, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, are you ever going to leave the practice of law? I would have said, absolutely not. I love this. I'm good at it. I make a lot of money. It fills me up. I truly enjoy my work. I love my partners. Like, I never would have told you I was leaving. And then because of this awakening that was sort of happening to me, unbeknownst to me at the time, I really started to take this interest in nutrition. And then it was catalyzed by, I'll come back to the meditation point. It was catalyzed by, I had got out of what I say is, hopefully, no, it is my last toxic relationship that I'll ever be in. And as a result of that, that was in November of 2017. And I came to meditation truly out of like desperation. I thought, okay, you've been in talk therapy on and off for at this point, 10 years, 15 years, like who knows how long I've been doing it. My parents are high school sweethearts, still married. My sister's in a really good marriage. I was like, what is my problem? Like, why can I not get this part figured out when I have all this other success in my life? So, and that was from, the workout stuff, the marathoning, the bodybuilding, all of that stuff was successful, but this relationship thing I really couldn't figure out. So I started meditating. And what I didn't anticipate when I started that process is by the spring of 2018, I had a meditation coach who suggested that I take her course, which was about finding your purpose, like figuring out why you're here. And I just looked at her kind of confused and I was like, I know I'm here. I've got a good job. I'm happy, etc. And she's like, yeah, I really think there's more for you, but okay. She was sort of placating me, right? Because she could see this future for me that I couldn't see. And then long story short, fast forward, I took that course. I had a lot of like just energetic downloads that came into me during that time. And one of them was the name of my business, which is called Energetically Efficient. And I thought, wow, that's a really cool name. I wonder what that means. I wonder what that's for. And I just kept meditating all year. And then by the summer of 2019, it was like this strong energetic pull. I say it really was my soul's calling to leave, and I realized I had to do it. It was hard for me. I sobbed my eyes out the day I left the law firm. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. But I also had such a strong knowingness in me that this is my next step. And the decision to do that is obviously difficult and rewarding and exciting and scary and fun. It's so many different emotions. So I started my business in the summer of 2019, and I've never looked back, and here we are 5+ years later, and I couldn't be happier. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but I hope that's there's probably like a million rabbit holes we can go down now.
Well, of course, I'm like, okay, meditation coach. I'm so intrigued. Here you
Yes.
are, not even in that, like you're not even meditating, correct? And then you hire a meditation coach?
Yeah, so here's my thing with that. I am a big person who says if you don't know how to do something, hire a coach to figure it out. So, like, if I wanted to learn how to speak French, could I get Rosetta Stone, teach myself at home, listen to audio tape? Sure. Would it be easier if I had a French teacher sit my butt in a chair and teach me French with her or him? Of course. So when I had been hearing for years that the most successful people in the world meditate, and that it's a superpower among all these CEOs and all these super successful people, and I would try it, and I would have this failure to launch and download the app, and oh, I don't like that app. That voice is annoying. I had all these excuses, right? And it was like, I'm too busy. I have too much things to do. Oh, I'm trying to meditate. Did I take the laundry out? Like this classic story that everyone has. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to hire a coach to teach me. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. And she actually came down to the office at the time. This was back at the time where she sort of did, I call them house calls, but she came down to the law firm at like 6 or 6:30 at night, and she took me through a guided meditation in one of our conference rooms across the table from me. And I had such a powerful experience during just that one session. I was like, okay, I need more of this in my life. It was like a light finally turned on that taught me, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like. This is when it's more powerful. And so I committed that I was going to do a session with her once a week. And then on my own, I was going to meditate 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes before bed. Well, 10 minutes kind of turned into 15 because I liked it. 15 turned into 20. And it just felt so rewarding to me because I couldn't get over. And I know it's annoying for anyone who's like, God, I've tried to meditate and I can't do it. It's so annoying to hear people like me talk about it with excitement. I mean it when I say, all of these things that you're like, should I go this way? Should I go that way? What's the answer? Should I take this job? Should I leave this marriage? Should I stay? Where should I move to? All of that stuff you already have the answers to. Truly. We have every single answer we ever need in the universe within us. And it's why I quote one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Joe Dispenza, because I've attended a couple of his meditation retreats now, is he says, and I just think this is so poignant. He says, if you want to hide the divine from humanity, put it inside of them because it's the last place they'll look. Because it's true. We spend all this time seeking answers from others, it's like we look outside of ourselves for everything when truly, if we can just continue to look inward, we have the answers. And so as I started to meditate more and as I started to wake up, crunchy things started to happen in my law practice. I'd get like, a difficult decision from a judge that didn't make any sense. I started to have conflict with a couple of my partners, which I had never had in my whole practice. And so what I started to realize, hindsight being 2020, and a lot of people have a similar story to me, is the universe was constantly reminding me that I was becoming further and further out of alignment with my soul's calling. And it was like, lady, we're going to have to make this uncomfortable enough for you that you're going to want to leave because you're too cushy there. And apparently, us just sending you a couple signs here and there aren't waking you up enough. So it had to make me uncomfortable enough to where I was like, oh, okay. I actually am supposed to not do this for the rest of my life. And that's when I finally and so I actually, to figure this out, because I just was like, how do I even figure this out? I'm meditating, but I went in January of 2019. I remember I went and did a vacation. I was with a girlfriend for her 50th birthday, and I went to Miraval. Have you guys heard of Miraval?
In Arizona?
Yes, I went to one in Tucson.
Okay. It's on my bucket list.
I know,
Okay.
same. It's on my vision board. Yep.
I loved it. So I went there for a weekend and I did a astrology reading. I did an intuitive reading. We did horse therapy. We did all the things. But in the astrology reading and the intuitive reading in particular, it was fascinating because I walked into this intuitive's office. She's very successful intuitive. She's like, done readings of the Real Housewives and those kind of people. Her name's Tina Powers. And she looked at me and she was like, I hadn't even sat down in the chair yet. And she's like, oh, wow. Are you an entrepreneur? Do you own your own brand? You have like a big brand. happening here? And I just started bawling. And I was like, that's why I'm here. Like, I'm trying to find myself. Like, I just had no clue. And it was all of this confirmation from the universe that, yes, you're designed for something bigger. I still didn't know what that looked like. I was like, how can I leave the practice of law? I'm so committed to my clients. I'm committed to my partners. And so slowly over the course of the next 6 months, it was like the universe started clearing my calendar. A trial that was supposed to happen got moved to way later in the year. So it would then be something I could actually transition to another lawyer. All these depositions I was supposed to have, certain cases settle. And I was like, oh my God, it was like the parting of the Red Sea on my calendar for the first time in, 16 years of practice. And I was like, I actually could leave without letting a bunch of people down. I could leave. And so that's why it opened up this window for me to do it in June. I let my firm know, I think kind of at the end of Q1, that was my commitment to myself. And then I started to let clients know over the next couple of months.
Take us back to you making that decision. Was that something that happened over time? Or was there like one divine moment that it was like, that you had that download or whatever, if you believe it, God speak to you, whatever that is. Was there something like that, or was it just over time you listened?
Yeah, good question. I would say it was more of an evolution over time because I think there was a part of me that didn't want to believe that that might be my reality, not because I was scared to go out on my own or anything like that. I really believe in my own ability to create success and wealth and abundance and all of that, because if you run a success frequency, money is just energy and you don't,
Amen.
you know what I mean? Right.
Amen.
So I wasn't worried about that, but it was more, and this is interesting because I know you guys will understand this if you're in the meditation world, it was more, I was really struggling with that ego and identity stuff and the loss of identity and the loss of who am I if I'm not a trial lawyer? Who am I if I'm, it's so funny. I recently changed my Instagram bio even. It used to say 25 marathons, professional bodybuilder, blah, blah. And that's all still great. And I have that in some photos and stuff, but I'm just practicing for myself, trying to let go of even talking about some of that stuff sometimes, because I just notice how much my ego wants to tell you. I was a top 50 lawyer in Minnesota before I left, a female lawyer before I left. My ego wants to say all that stuff, but it's like, the end of the day, what I really want to do, which I'm sure is true for both of you, it's like, we're here to serve. I'm here to really elevate other humans, to get them healthy in their body, to get them as energetically and physically fit so that they thrive in life. And so the short answer to your question, Amy, is that I was slowly over time, it sort of confirmed it when I went to Miraval in January. And then I told myself, okay, if this is a reality, if I'm really going to leave, I have to let my partners know by the end of Q1 2020, or what was that? 2019. So I gave myself a deadline because I thought otherwise I'll never do this. I'll just continue to stay. So literally on the last day of Q1 of 2019, I told my primary boss and my partner, and you guys, I don't know if you're into the spirit number thing, but the amount of repeating number sequences that I saw that day from the second I woke up until the time I had to tell him, the universe was like, you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. It was like the number of emails in my trash, the number of emails in my inbox, the time I saw on the clock, the license plates on the way to work, you name it, the receipt when I got my coffee that morning. I actually recorded a voice note about it because it was so confirming, and I was sobbing when I'm making this voice note, okay, I just want to remember this because my angels are supporting me. I just got so spiritual about it. And once I communicated it, once I let the cat out of the bag, it was like this huge relief came over me. And then there was no looking back, because that was honestly the scariest part for me, was telling my partners, because I just was worried I was going to let them down. That was the hardest part.
Yes. And that was after you had walked through a divorce, right? So you were making this step as a single woman.
Oh yes. Oh yes. I've been divorced in 2012. And so, a lot of people make this journey and they're like, well, I have my spouse's stuff to fall back on, or and I thought, thankfully, because a lawyer creates a fairly successful life, I had savings and I had stuff that I could fall back on, but I also just knew I will be successful. There was not a part of me that ever doubted that, literally ever. And so it's everything from what I chose to charge the first clients who hired me, which is way more than lots of nutritional therapists who graduate from nutritional therapy school, simply because I was running with a crowd, let's call it, or colleagues or peers who were executives, who were lawyers, who were doctors, and I knew that I was really good at what I did already, even if I didn't have 16 years of experience like I did in the practice of law. And I also knew, because the practice of law is so frustrating from a billing time standpoint. I mean, if there's one thing I'm thrilled that I don't have to do anymore, it's exchange time for money. So I told myself I was never going to start this business and like charge by the hour. That was not something I was going to do because I did that for 16 years and I was very ready to get out of that model. So everything I've ever done since the inception of my business is package pricing. So it's all based on value, and it's this many sessions for this amount of money with this kind of support in between sessions and these add-ons or whatever. So I don't do any hourly stuff just because I knew that that was my old life.
Oh, that's
So,
brilliant.
yes.
That's brilliant.
Thank you.
Here's a big thing, because this is what we see a lot of people. And when we coach with people, they want the safety net, right? So walk people through as far as nutritional therapy. Did you have all of those quote certifications done? Did you have all that done? Or were you just like, I'm in it, I jumped in, I'm going to figure it out?
Oh yeah, I had no certifications. Nope. In fact, my first client who hired me so I quit the practice of law, or left. My last day was June 7th of 2019. It was a Friday. And I say I started energetically efficient on June 10th of 2019, which was a Monday. So my first clients hired me. I think we started working together July 1st or right around the 1st of July. And they hired me for a 6-month contract. I did not graduate from nutritional therapy school until November of that year. So I was still very much in school and continuing to learn and charging. Keep in mind, by this time, I had had a lot of personal success with my marathons, with becoming a professional bodybuilder, with, whittling my body down into shape to be on stage or whatever. So and I know you guys understand this, but the world has changed so dramatically over the last however many years as consciousness has risen. And so the stuff that we propped up as the most important pillars of value, let's say, in the 80s and 90s are just not the same in the 2000s. They're just not. And it has to do with astrology and it has to do with spirituality. And I'm happy to get into all of that if you guys want me to, because I love talking about the shift, the planetary shift that we're in the middle of. But I'm convinced, whether it's in our lifetime or not, I don't know, but the education system is going away. The banking system is going away. The corporations are going away. Like, we are seeing a breakdown of systems on our planet like we've never seen before in our lifetime, because we're truly at a time in history that is unprecedented. Consciousness has never been this high. And as it continues to rise, what happens is the underbelly of society, the shadow side of what's been underneath all of this city or false we've been doing, is being revealed. And now it's like, wait, that person has this dark side to them. That celebrity has this that happened. And we're seeing all of that be unearthed because consciousness is rising so quickly. The shadow side can't be hidden anymore. Like, people aren't going to be able to hide from anything other. Like, the only thing that we will see is the truth. There isn't going to be a way to massage and cover up the truth, because the truth is being revealed in all of these different industries. And so I just feel like that's so exciting. It's not how many degrees you have, how many institutions you have behind you. It's literally, what have you done in this new career, and who have you served, and how have you helped, and how are you willing to do the work to do better at that and do more of it? And you're now an expert. You're now an expert. There was a part of me that was like, oh, do I go back to school and get like my functional doctor thing? I've wondered that so many times, and I thought, this is silly. All of that is driven by your ego. It is you wanting to have more initials after your name. Stop it. Stop it. You're getting a full PhD from the podcast you listen to, for God's sakes, and just because you didn't go to school and take an exam and do written or oral boards or whatever, so what?
You have results. I mean, you have client after client after client. And like you said, I've also, in those 16 years of practicing law, I've also built my brand. I've also built me. And my brand is, somebody, you obviously were dialed into the way food makes you feel, the way real food makes you feel, what you're putting in your body, the way you're using your body. I mean, I love, there was a tagline you had, natural bodybuilder, professional bodybuilder, natural professional bodybuilder. I was like, ooh, I like that. I like that. So you already had all these things that you had done, this work you had done, that, as you say, like, it was for you, right? All along it was for you. And that gave you credibility. And the biggest thing though, and this is what we always say, is you believed it. So when you move from needing to wanting to believing to knowing, and you said that, I just knew I would be successful. And that's true of all women at the top, right? That top 5%, they're like, I just knew. I don't know how. I didn't know the how. I'm sure you didn't have any great, like, I don't even know how to start getting all these clients. I don't, your social media, I don't know where it was back then, but it was probably at that point, people that trusted you, knew you, liked you, trusted you, and said, here, start with me.
Yes. Yes, it's so true. And I'm so glad you spoke to, Molly, that piece of like the personal brand, because I recall when I was practicing law that was something towards that last year that I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And I'm talking about nutrition a little bit on social media. And I was starting to build what people would refer to as a personal brand, what I now understand as personal brand. And I remember having a very difficult conversation with one of my partners at a lunch one day. And I was talking about this concept of personal brand. And of course, he's of, the olden days, so to speak, and just was like, yeah, this personal brand that you're building, it's not consistent with what we do. Like trial lawyers are drinkers and hard workers and not necessarily healthy and all. And I was like, that's not true. I'm not. Like, I can be healthy. And in fact, by the way, and this is why I now speak to and have a lot of lawyers as clients, it makes you better at your job. Like I firmly believe, and I will scream this from any mountaintop, the fitter you are, the better you are at your executive level position, whether you are an executive, CEO, entrepreneur, lawyer, doctor, it doesn't matter. You are better if you are fit, period. You have more energy, your brain works better, you are able to problem solve more easily, you can be more creative, you actually have more time because you have more energy. So it's so funny to me that the things that I was being criticized for at the time when I was getting to this uncomfortable place with the universe trying to push me out are now the very things that I make money doing. It's just fascinating, right? And I've heard, I don't remember where I heard this, but I've heard people talk about the fact that you have to look back at what you were criticized for as a child. And typically that's how you end up making money later. Like my report card constantly said, tax too much. Okay, well, guess what? I speak on stage now. I talk a lot. People pay me to do it. And it's because that was what I was designed to do from the beginning. And then society has this amazing way of dimming your light, shutting you down, trying to get you to conform, trying to make you a robot, trying to plug you into a system. And those of us who are awakening and who are observing how fun it is to create your own personal brand are doing it and just showing the way for others so they can do it too, which is amazing.
Okay, I love that. And no wonder that we are kindred spirits, because I also had talks too much, is too social, is too, too happy, too nice. So talk a little bit about what you do. How do you help people? Do you have a favorite client you love to help? And I already know the answer, but just kind of speak to that.
Yeah, so it's a great question. I help both men and women. So I know a lot of women's businesses are focused more on women. My clients are both. And so they're the really busy, stressed out professional or executive who feels like, these are their words, not mine, feels like they've quote unquote let themselves go and want to get back to finding themselves again. So that could be a mom after multiple kids. That could be a busy executive who focused on work for too many years and it's like, oh my God, I have these extra 50 pounds on me and what's happening? Or someone who got diagnosed with some sort of autoimmune thing or some other GI issue. There's something about their physical body. Some clients for me now, it's clients hiring me just to do energy work, and I can tell you about what that looks like, but basically who needs education because they've tried all the diets, they've tried all the things and nothing's working for them. And so they want a guide who can just program what they eat, how they work out. So they come to me and I work with them obviously on a bio-individual level, but it's really helping them understand how fat loss works, how we can lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. And as a sidebar, I have to say sidebar because I like to use lawyer terms sometimes still. as a sidebar, I love when I hear people say you can't lose fat and gain muscle at the same time, because I'm like, watch me, I can give you hundreds of bod pods and DEXA scans that show you that you're wrong, because I have clients that do it all the time. So it's a matter of helping them understand macronutrients, micronutrients, helping them understand how their digestive system works. I mean, I laugh thinking, here I was at 40, whatever, starting my business, going back to school for nutritional therapy, and I couldn't have told you where all the parts of my digestive system were located in my body. I'm like, did we cover this in middle school biology? I don't know. I forgot it, but it's such important information to know. Like, we eat every day and all our body is literally comprised of what we eat. And it's fascinating that this isn't emphasized more at any level of education. So I spend a lot of time educating my clients. I tell them I spend a lot of time basically unprogramming them from everything they thought they knew about nutrition, especially if there's anywhere near my age range, because we were raised in fat is bad, fat free is good, eat all the 100-calorie snack packs that you want to. I mean, I ran so many marathons as a carb fueled athlete. And I remember it was in about 2012, which is ironically right around the time I was getting divorced. And then fast forward a year later was when I broke my leg. It was 2012 where I was at the height of what I would call my carb fueling, because I ran the Fargo Marathon and I took a goo packet every 5 miles of that race. Okay, I was in the Biffy, sorry TMI, for probably a half an hour after that race, because it wreaks so much havoc on your gut. And I just didn't know anything better than like, hit the sugar button, hit the sugar button, hit the sugar button. Yep. Fast forward to my comeback marathon in 2015, where I had steak, asparagus, and butter the night before. And the only thing I had that morning of the race was 1 packet of coconut butter. And I ran a 3:19, like it was my fastest marathon yet. And I was just so thrilled. And I felt so good because I started out fat fueled. I didn't hit a wall. I didn't crash. It was a totally different fuel substrate to fuel me. And so I just help educate people about things like this, because I love listening to all the audiobooks and podcasts and diving into the research, and my clients don't have time for it. So I'm basically their right hand research, nutrition, fitness expert who then helps them understand all of that. And so I'm really big on educating my clients so that they understand the why behind it, because it'll allow them to stick to things much better. And then also making sure I educate them about things like strength training, get them strength training, because it's, you're probably your best anti-aging serum you can take.
And then do you also incorporate that to clients that want that meditative, like kind of going into the energetics and all of that? Do you always incorporate it? Do you customize?
Yeah, thank you. So it really depends on the client's level of awakening. So I can sort of tell in the beginning, I'm like, listen, I can get as woo-woo as you want to go. And I usually use those terms. And some people are like, oh my gosh, give me all, I want to talk my human design. I understand my birth chart and astrology. Like, we can go deep down those rabbit holes. And some people are like, no, I basically just want to understand macros. And so no judgment to where people are, because I think about my own awakening journey. If someone would have looked at me and started to like talk a concept of something like gene keys to me even 5 years ago, I would have been like, huh? It literally wouldn't have landed. And now I can hear terms like that. I can talk about the most wacky sort of spiritual concepts and really get into them and be interested in them, but not everyone is at that level. So I just meet people where they're at, and I tell everyone at some point during their work with me that they think they came to me for just the physical stuff, but that there's really so much more going on in our work together, because I'm working on their energy body, whether they realize it or not. And so I'll educate them about it a little bit, and then how deep we get into that depends on the client.
That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. So when you mention your transformation, it just reminded me of how oftentimes what we've all done is we've kind of died to self, right? So we've kind of, our old self, trial attorney, physical therapy, top producing realtor, we've kind of are dying, and you've walked away from that. I'm shedding that now. Molly has walked away. So what was that like as you moved? I mean, did you feel that, as you transitioned or ascended, I guess, into who you are truly meant to be, right? You found your purpose, walking in your greatness?
Yeah, I would say that I feel like the transition has been right in line with the timing of what it's supposed to be. I know that's kind of a cliche saying, but everything happens at the right time, of course. So the first year of my business, I was observing myself still attending more lawyer events, still going to more networking things, still doing the things that I was programmed to think, this is how you make money, this is how you get clients, this is how. So, and I'm sure you guys, we could talk about a whole series of this on its own podcast episode, but just this whole, I became successful in my masculine, and now I'm learning how to be successful in my feminine. So I do spiritual retreats about this. I do a lot of reading about this. I really desire to understand what success in the divine feminine looks like and how I'm cultivating that. I'm not going to pretend that I have it mastered at all. I laugh and I tell people this. This was one of the first things I bought when I started my business. It's this little wooden thing that says achieve. I'm like, I have to do a ceremony and burn this, because this is like one of those hustle, grind, achieve, masculine paradigms. And now it's the feminine is all about ease and flow and receptivity and allowing abundance and allowing success and just showing up as your authentic self and not having to hustle and grind. So I would say that that has been a deep evolution for me in terms of my transition of shedding a lot of that masculine. I mean, even the fact that I haven't run a marathon since 2019. I ran one before COVID and then that was my last one and I haven't done another one yet. I've done the Grand Canyon rim to rim trim, like I've done other adventure things and I did compete in bodybuilding again last year. But just how my perspective on a lot of that stuff has changed in terms of even just the winning versus losing, which that was literally the only thing that used to matter to me. Winning and losing. As a trial lawyer, you can imagine, as a marathoner, you can imagine, all of that was so important. And now I'd say I've been softening into this new identity and just trying to figure out what that means. And I'm still exploring it. So I don't have a good answer for you other than I'm in the process of evolving still.
I love it.
Well, I love how you said that first year. So I want people to have an idea if they have a desire on their heart. So often they're like, it needs to be built up. Like, I just need to cut the ties. And like you even said, like, I didn't cut the tie. Yes, I walked away from a career, but I was still doing lawyer things. I was still out there because your ego feet. I completely relate. Going to physical therapy, showing up at all the right things. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm not even practicing, but I'm showing up at all this stuff. So it wasn't like this, like, yeah, cut the cord. And then I had 3,000 clients. Was there a time in that year or two where you did be super honest and vulnerable, where you were like, holy hell, what did I do? Did you ever have that in those first few years where you're like,
I'm really honest with you, I really didn't. There was never a time where I was like, did I make the wrong decision? Never have I asked myself that question ever. There's never would I go back? People ask me, do you miss it? So that's a different question. And
right.
Of course, there are aspects about lawyering that I miss simply because I loved my career. It was an amazing career. I miss standing in front of judges and juries and performing. I miss winning a trial. Like, there is nothing like winning a trial and having the jury come back with a verdict. It's just like getting your fastest marathon time. All of that stuff, as a human being, you are a liar if you don't admit that stuff feels good, because it does, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
some of those things I for sure miss, but I don't miss them enough to say I would go back to it. I get so much. I went to the grocery store this morning and I ran into a former client and her wife, and it was so good to see her. And she's still implementing everything we did together in our 6 months. And she sent me a message after. She's like, oh my God, I forgot to tell you, I'm also off my blood pressure medication. I don't take any pharmaceuticals anymore, because she was getting off of those while we were working together. She doesn't take antidepressants. And like, that to me is as good, if not better, than winning a trial, because this has so dramatically impacted this person's life in such a positive way. And no judgment against the practice of law or attorneys or trials, but a lot of times in some of those cases, especially in the kind I would do, I would say a lot of cases are helping rich people fight over money, which, just from a spiritual, energetic perspective, I started to evolve out of it. I'm not saying I'm better than, but I genuinely evolved out of it, because when I sat in a client meeting with a client who literally got sued for like the 7th time, I'm sitting there wanting to life coach him and help him understand that, like, he's the problem. And I thought, okay, if that's where you're at, Kristin, you might have to switch careers. Like, if you now want to life coach your lawyer clients, something is changing in you. And so I would say I literally couldn't go back, because I'm a totally different person. I would probably look at someone in a new client meeting and go, are you effing kidding me? Like, you realize how you got yourself into this energetically. You realize that you run a frequency of victim and abuse. Like, it would be too hard for me to not speak to the energetics of it. And they'd be like, huh? I just want to know if I have a claim, whatever. So I just couldn't do it, because I'm literally a different person who has evolved beyond lawyering. Does that make sense?
oh, 100%.
I mean, I know it probably sounds like I'm saying I'm better than. It's not that. It's a totally different reality and a different paradigm that, for people who aren't awakened or who aren't on the awakening path, they literally couldn't even understand what I'm talking about, probably. But once you enter into this different reality and you elevate in terms of your energy, in terms of just how you go about your decision-making process, I couldn't go back to that world if I tried to.
we always say you don't know what you don't know, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Right.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Or my
Yes.
human
And
got in the way, right? Sometimes I'll say that. I'm like, well, mom showed up, my human, not my spiritual side, but my, the one that wants to be in charge and, well, really my masculine side.
yeah, one of my mentors describes it as your higher self versus your small s self. Small s, not ass, s. So just the higher self versus the small s self. And it's such a good reminder. I'm like, oh, there she is again, getting all
Yep.
worried and scarcity and blah, blah, blah. It's like, go away. She doesn't need to, and then I will like make sure I engage in practices like, okay, does she feel seen? What is she scared about? Doing some like self-care practices that really acknowledge that rather than just bypassing it and stuffing it under the rug. 'Cause sometimes it might be some inner child thing that I need to address or deal with. So I do a lot of work, personal work on that outside of, serving clients. I make sure that I'm constantly working on my energy. I have business coaches, I have people that I work with so that I always show up as my highest vibrational self when I'm in client meetings.
And I love that what you said. I mean, like you said, back to the coaches again, that is with everything. I mean, you said business coach. I have an energetics coach. I have people that are successful, have many people helping them. It's not just by their own will or listening to something once. Like you said, I could go to Rosetta Stone and learn French, but I'm going to hire a coach. And
In fact, my partners used to tease me about it at the law practice because I was the first lawyer in our firm to hire a business coach. And she was a lawyer who also left the practice of law and started coaching. And they were like, well, why are you hiring a coach? And I said, because the most successful people in the world have coaches. And then that next year, I end up having more originations and generating revenue than any of my peers. And it was like, now they all want to coach. I'm like, see, this is the point. You have coaching helps you. It's an energetic up leveling for you that's going to allow you to explore things about yourself, focus on things, set intentions, hold yourself accountable to someone. There's so much benefit. In fact, the current business coach I'm with, I'm season 10 of her podcast. So all of the coaching is live in her podcast, which is like wild that I'm showing up this vulnerably. It's like very intense, but I'm doing it. I'm showing up for it. And the business coach I had before that, who I adore, I'm going to a retreat on her land next month in October and getting together with my 7 sisters who are part of that mastermind because I just so believe in the power of women getting together and supporting each other. I think it's one of the greatest things we can do for each other, truly.
Absolutely. I have to ask, did you put your license on referral or inactive or
Yeah, so my license, I had just renewed it when I left the practice of law in 2019. And it's due again next year. We have a 3-year cycle.
Okay.
And so I'm going to continue it. And I've asked myself, how long am I going to do this? Am I going to keep my law license? And so I'm going to just do it for one more time. And then I'll have another 3 years to decide. But I would imagine as I continue to evolve at some point, I'll say, okay, you don't need this anymore. Because right now I'm probably, if I'm really honest, still hanging on to it more because of my ego.
Yes.
Conversely, I'm also starting another business with one of my law partners who I'm still very close with. She and I are very good friends. And we're going to be opening a gym, which is a strength training boutique gym, which is where I've been lifting since 2007. They're franchising around the country. So we bought the territory in Nashville and we're opening a franchise location in Nashville. I'm actually moving to Nashville in January, which is very exciting.
Oh, how
So
exciting.
I'm so excited. I've lived in Minneapolis, you guys, since literally 1999, and I cannot wait. I'm very excited about this transition. So she and I, reviewing the contracts, reviewing the lease, like all of my legal skills, like still help for all of that. And so I'm intending to keep it up for a while right now. And, someday I'm sure I'll let it go. Way before I thought I would have, but I'm sure I will.
I think that's such a great answer. And honestly, I did that as well. So I held on to it for quite some time until I think last year I just finally put it on inactive. I was like, this is my ego, but it comes in handy at times, right? Little things like that. So I totally hear you. And I'm so excited.
I do feel like, just real quick on that, and this is just a unique thing to lawyers. It probably is true in other professions as well, but I always say lawyers sometimes can be very difficult critics. And so they really like to hear from other lawyers. So like when I go to speak, when I get hired to speak to law firms, it gives me a lot of credibility that I'm still a lawyer. It's just how they are. And so for me to get speaking gigs around the country, it does make a difference that I'm still a practicing attorney. And in fact, every time I get hired to speak, they mention it. They're like, well, lawyers, really respect and trust you. And I'm like, of course they do, because we're jerks. You know what I mean? So I laugh about that, but it's like part of me is still playing the game. It's like if I want to build my speaking career and continue to reach people who are like, it has to be a lawyer or I'm not going to listen to her. It's like, whatever, I'll play your dumb game. That's fine.
That brings me to, you mentioned speaking, and do you see yourself moving into more instead of the private one-on-one clients or?
Yeah, so part of my journey this year in 2024 has been funneling down how many one-on-one clients I take so that I have more room so that I can be speaking a lot more. And so I've slowly but surely been doing that. And so I have a waiting list created, and that's exciting because it gives me so much more white space on my calendar. And that allows me to have more speaking gigs. It allows me to do more content creation. It allows me to spend more time in meditation, coming up with the ways I'm supposed to serve. I was still, for a very long time in my practice of nutritional therapy and coaching, still running my lawyer program of, I have to have my calendar filled all day. I have to be busy. Yes, I can take more clients. So even that has been an evolution and an undoing, because it was me going from being a human doing to becoming a human being. And that I'm still on that journey for sure. I still have a very difficult time just like sitting down and enjoying a meal without feeling like I need to check social media, respond to a client, read my emails. It's like, no, just sit outside and watch your dogs play and eat a meal. Like that is actually becoming a human being. And I need to get better at that. So that is still a work in progress for me. 1000%.
I was just going to interrupt. Well, when Amy and I both spoke at the same time, I was going to ask you as you're speaking as well. Like, is that something that you really are passionate and excited about? And I'm sure your first speaking event, just for all the people that listen that are like, yes, she's speaking to me, I want to do speaking. Starting out versus where you are now, I'm sure starting out, it was a lot different than where you are now.
Yeah, for sure. My first speaking event was actually I was still practicing law, or I just gotten out of the practice of law. It was in the summer of 2019. I was on the main stage at KetoCon. I spoke in Austin, Texas, which was amazing. But just even how I put together my talk at that time versus how I put together my talks now has changed and evolved so much. I would say I have a little bit of an unfair advantage from a speaking perspective because I spoke to judges and juries and was on a performance sort of stage type of career for years. So being on stage, it doesn't make me nervous. I don't get scared. I get really excited to do it. I would love to do it more of it, like truly around the country and around the world. So I would say that what I've learned, at least since I've been doing it, not as a lawyer, but as a nutritional therapist and speaker, is I'm really intentional about who am I speaking to, what is going to resonate with them the most, how do I need to craft my talk to give them the most valuable takeaways and information? What level are they out of understanding? Am I speaking to a bunch of other health conscious individuals, or am I speaking to executives? Am I speaking to a busy set of lawyers who only are going to give me a half an hour? All of that is different in terms of how I do my talks. And so I've gotten really good feedback, and people have, shared with me how much they've learned from my talks. And some of them have hired me as their one-on-one coach, which is kind of fun.
I love that. I mean, truly, you have folded time in half. You have. I mean, and it's because it's all here. I mean, it's all in what you think and what you know. That very strong statement that you made right from the get-go of, I know I'll be successful. I know I will.
And I remind clients of that a lot because I have clients now who hire me if they're in a career transition, if they're thinking about a career transition, obviously because that's what I did and I was successful at it. So I remind them that literally money is energy. Everything is frequency. And if you continue to remind yourself that you were successful in this first career, so you can't not be successful in this next career, like it's a universal law. The best example I can give is people who win the lottery and then lose it all within a year or two. It's because they don't hold a success frequency. Someone who wins a lottery, who is a homeless person, isn't going to now be successful and know how to invest their money. And it's not because they didn't have the right guidance or counseling or advisors around them. It's because they can't hold money energetically as a frequency. If you were successful, and I just was talking to someone about this recently, I reminded her, I'm like, you were successful. You're going to be successful at this new career. Remember, you run a success rate. She's like, okay, thank you for the reminder. Thank you for the reminder. I'm like, you do. It can't not happen. So that's also just so reassuring to remind yourself of that if you're on career 2 and you were successful, yes, how you become successful might look different. How you make your money might look very different, but it doesn't mean you won't be successful at it. It means you actually will.
That is so good. And this brings us to something so great. So we always ask everybody at the end of our podcast. Our podcast is called Meet Me in the Penthouse. And that could mean a lot of different things for other people. You know, it can be real estate, as I have been in real estate for years, but you're talking energy. So what does Meet Me in the Penthouse mean to you?
Oh, I love this question. So for me, if I think of being in the penthouse, I think of being in a space where I am completely fulfilled, surrounded by luxury, surrounded by ease and flow, and able to receive. These sounds like real feminine principles, but where I am thriving and feel like my most physically fit and energetically fit self. So it's not to play this game like nothing in life will ever be hard or that you won't ever have a bad day, but that so much more about how you are living your life and existing in the world is positive more than negative. And that's, especially at this time of the year when we are in a very polarized time, it's a very polarizing year, to remind people that what they listen to, who they choose to surround themselves with, all of that is energy. Everything is frequency. So the music you listen to, the podcast you listen to, who you spend your time with, all of that stuff, just to really keep that clean, is another reminder I was just thinking of as I was thinking of this life in the penthouse that's so luxurious and easy and flowing.
Oh my gosh, Kristin, that is one of the most lovely answers. And I mean, if we could jump through the screen right now, I'm like, yes, yes, I know. It would be like hugging and we'd all be celebrating together. But that was such a profound answer and such a high frequency answer. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. And honestly, thank you for just being open and just being open to just have a conversation with us and just teach our listeners so much, because it was so much more than what I even thought it would be in the beginning. So, oh my goodness, thank you. Thank you. You are a true Dolly. Thank you so much. We're so excited for you to follow Kristin. Let them know, how can they follow you along? Where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm most active social media wise on Instagram, which is MN Golden Girl, MN for Minnesota. I keep getting teased by my friends. So I'm going to have to change that when I move to Nashville, but we will see. For right now, I'm still keeping it as Golden Girl because I have these 3 amazing golden retrievers. So I'm obsessed with golden, everything gold. My website is just energeticallyefficient.com. And I also am active a little bit on LinkedIn. And then I'm going to be really building, my intention in 2025 is to be building more of my YouTube channel. So I have ideas about things like cooking with Kristin and me doing a lot of things like educating people about nutrition labels and those kinds of things. So it would be like having Instagram reels, but doing longer form and like a lot of them, because I really want to build up the YouTube channel and it'll be a good way for me to be speaking more on camera. So that's the intention for 2025.
I love that you already know what it looks like, and it is done. It is done.
It is done. Now we just have to align everything into place. Yes.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And with that, we'll part ways. Thank you so much, Kristin.
Thank you so much. Let's stay in touch. I mean, if we all lived to, not that we can't be friends, but if we lived in Minnesota or you lived in Nebraska, we'd all be, I'd let you and Molly work out together and then I'd meet you at the gym and lift weights, but you could run together.
I love it. I love it. Thank you guys so much for having me. I
Thank
appreciate it. Yeah.
Have a wonderful day.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you for tuning in today for Meet Me in the Penthouse with Sisters Amy and Molly. Please rate and review. We love those 5-star ratings and would love to have you go to our website at sistersnextdoor.com.